Here I am again. I'm Red Blanchard, and here's what I've been thinking about today. I'm talking about city songs. Can you imagine how many songs in the United States are about cities? And how many cities have wonderful songs? And how some cities, no matter how big, can't seem to get a song? Now, the first one that comes to mind, of course, is Los Angeles. I grew up in Los Angeles. I lived there after I grew up, I went back and lived for another 30 or 40 years. And all that time, all these pitiful attempts to have a song about L.A., and it never worked. They had a few attempts, feeble attempts, but nothing happened. But when you stop to think about some of the other cities around the country, even small towns that have a wonderful song about them, you wonder how it could happen that L.A., Los Angeles, doesn't have a song. By the way, you might have noticed I call it Los Angeles. When I was growing up in the 20s and 30s, there were two ways to say Los Angeles. One was that, and the other one was Los Angeles. Well, the two powerful radio stations in town were KFI and KNX. And KFI always said Los Angeles. And KNX, their official station policy was Los Angeles. They even had it on the clock in the announce booth. Even years later, when I worked there myself, that clock still said Los Angeles with a hard G on the clock, so you'd be sure to say it the right way. Well, this went on for many years, and then one day the city council decided, in their paternalistic way, does this sound familiar to where the country's going right now? The city council took a vote and decided on the official pronunciation of Los Angeles from that moment on would be Los Angeles. Well, I never could say that. I don't want to say it, and I won't say it. And those pinkos in the city hall can't make me say it. Well, so much for Los Angeles, and they don't have a song either. So there's a lot of things against LA, but there's a lot of things for it. Everybody in the country wants to go there. It's the headquarters of most of the showbiz and all that sort of thing. A wonderful town. And even one of the little suburbs, actually more than one suburb, had a great song, but nothing about Los Angeles itself. I'm referring to Hollywood. Hooray for Hollywood! How was that for a song, huh? Then San Fernando had one. I'm gonna settle down and never more roam and make the San Fernando Valley my home. Los Angeles should be so lucky as to get a song like that. Going around the country, they have one. By the time I get to Phoenix is one. And do you know the way to San Jose? And of course, San Francisco has several songs. One of them, of course, I Left My Heart in San Francisco. But way before that was one called San Francisco, Open Your Golden Gate, or words to that effect. And let's see, what else? Well, there's Chicago. There's a couple, that toddling town, and there's probably more than one song about Chicago. I can't think of one about Philadelphia, though. I could be, I don't remember all of them, but I know Boston had one called the Boston Begin, sort of a novelty song, and it never really caught on big, but I liked it. I played the record on my radio show many a time called the Boston Begin. I don't recall any other specific song about Boston. Of course, I left out New York. New York with a big theater district there and all these famous Broadway shows. They've had many songs about New York. And even way back in the 20s, they had one called was that the 12th Street Rag? Was that about New York? No, Sidewalks of New York. That's it. Sidewalks of New York. The 12th Street Rag was actually written about Kansas City. And when I lived in Kansas City, in fact, it was one of the jazz capitals of the country, and they had many jazz combos playing all over town, and they had a lot of songs about Kansas City. And years later, even in the rock and roll area, one of the rock and roll singers had a song about Kansas City. But I'm trying to remember what it was when I lived. Oh, I know. Between 18th and 19th on Chestnut Street. That was a big novelty song in the 30s, and that was about Kansas City because 18th and Vine was the main headquarters of the jazz music scene in Kansas City. We used to spend a lot of time in that area, and it was a nice, peaceful time. Anybody, a single girl, could walk down the sidewalk at 2 o'clock in the morning, and she wouldn't have to worry about anything happening to her. That's the way Kansas City was, and I'm talking about when I lived there, it was 1942 and 43, when the war was on, and it was a safe place for everybody. And too bad that all over the country now it's not like that. Especially a girl can't, even in broad daylight, a girl can't walk to school in San Diego. She's got to watch out that somebody doesn't grab her. And there's been a couple of them killed here because of that. Speaking of San Diego, I can't think of any specific song about San Diego. And that is kind of odd, isn't it? You'd think that town would lend itself to a song, but I wish I'd have written notes here. Let's see. No, I didn't have any other lists of songs written down here. Of course, when I mentioned about the jazz scene, it reminded me of the jazz music and the big band era that I played in, and a lot of the things that happened in that big band era were back in the New England area. And then when I went to Kansas City, a lot happened there. I'll do that in another report. Right now, I'd just like to suggest to you, maybe somebody out there has a bright idea for a song about Los Angeles. And if you do, how about sending it in to me? You don't have to send the whole music, but just an idea of what it's about. And I wish you would do that. And you can send it in to me at my regular website, redblanchard.com. And until the next time I think of something to talk about, I'll say so long until then.